Back to today's video. Today is Saturday, July 25th, 2020, and we are officially 100 days until the 2020 presidential election. So I'm actually going to go ahead and speed up the 2020 election prediction that I plan to do in the beginning of August. I'll probably push it back a little bit further than that so we can go ahead and see, new events that will happen and their impact on the overall electorate. I think that, considering that we're 100 days away, Donald Trump is at a very low point. Nationwide, he's down 8% as an incumbent president. This is not the 2016 election. Joe Biden has been considerably outperforming Hillary Clinton in almost every single swing state, and that's something that Donald Trump truly needs to worry about. He was competitive in 15 out of the 18 states that were decided by less than 10% in 2016. He won 11 of them and came within 5% in an additional 4. Now, Joe Biden leads in 15 out of 18 states. So for a president that should be leading in, 15 out of these 18 states, or competitive in 15 out of the 18, he only leads in 2 because Texas right now is a tie. So that puts him at a very bad position entering into this election prediction, considering that he's at one of his lowest points in the presidency. Granted, 2 weeks ago when I made this video, Joe Biden was up around 8.9%, rounded up to 10%. However, taking a look at the data now, a 1% difference, and not much has changed. In fact, Joe Biden has expanded his leads in some of the battleground states, including notable states such as Florida and other battlegrounds in the Rust Belt. So we're looking at an electoral map that likely will look very similar to 2016, considering that a number of states, regardless of how President Trump performs, will never vote for the Democrats, and same thing for those Democratic states that will never vote for the Republicans. That includes states such as California, and for the Republicans, I guess you could consider a state such as Oklahoma. These states are safe for their political parties. So if you don't know what I use for my characterizations, if you're new to my channel, it's in the description if you want to go ahead and refer to it. However, I will tell you that safe is anything 15% or more. Anything between 5 to 15 or 5.00001% to 15% is considered to be likely. 1 to 5% is lean, and then less than 1% is tilt. You'll see what I mean when I say tilt, because there will be some states I would characterize with that rating. It's just a lighter version. Actually, it looks a little bit darker, but it's meant to be a lighter version of the color blue or red. So I've pretty much filled in all of the safe states for the Democratic Party. I think right now, they should have 188 electoral votes. I'm missing one. I think it might be from Maine's 1st congressional district. Yeah, there it is. And then for the GOP, they should start off with, I think this is about, let's go ahead and characterize Nebraska. Nebraska's 2nd district is the only one that's competitive. So if you ever see a Nebraska poll, they're usually going to be characterizing Nebraska's 2nd district. They probably won't focus too much money on the overall state itself. But again, pollsters are weird. Sometimes they do things that we don't typically expect. I think that's it for all of the states that a lot of pundits consider to be safe for both candidates. So obviously Joe Biden enters in with a 100 electoral college advantage, but that's just because of the fact that these Democratic states have only gone further to the left, and a number of these, previously solid Republican states have moved a little bit leftward. That's not saying that Missouri and Indiana are competitive. I know I'm going to see a comment about it. However, I don't think they're competitive. I don't think Joe Biden has a realistic shot, but I don't think Donald Trump will run up the numbers the same way he did in 2016. I think we could see something similar to 2012 margins in these states, 10-point margins of victory for the Republicans, not 19, 20% 4 years ago. So while Donald Trump, I do think, will hold on to these states, let's go ahead and characterize them as likely. Let's not waste any time about states that really won't be competitive in the end. I actually would group South Carolina and Mississippi together. Now, I know Mississippi seems surprising, but I definitely think with increased black turnout, like what we saw in 2012 or 2008, we could see maybe a 10-point margin of victory for Donald Trump rather than, a 19-point margin of victory. So Hillary Clinton did not do well at all in Mississippi in 2016, but Obama actually was only 10% lower than McCain, I believe, in 2008 and 2012. So Mississippi, I think, could narrow down below 15%. South Carolina, Missouri, and Indiana, absolutely. Another state I would tackle onto that is Alaska. Alaska has actually shown us that it has become a little bit more competitive in the past 2018 elections and is expected to in this 2020 election. So the presidential election probably won't be contested, but Donald Trump only leads Biden by single digits according to all of the data that we've seen. I think 2 new polls from Alaska. And I'm not just blindly trusting the polls. We saw a close race in the House election in 2018. Keep in mind that Republican incumbent was the oldest Republican in the House of Representatives and still is. He will be 87 through Election Day. So There's a competitive House race there. There's a competitive Senate race, and the Democrats actually performed a little bit better. So they don't always run a Democrat in Alaska. They have this thing called the Alaskan Independence Party, the Libertarian Party. Actually all of their third parties and the Democratic Party have combined into one official primary. So typically, if you want to win that overall nomination, you'd run as an independent, as Al Gross has in the Senate race. He ran as an independent, won that overall primary, and now is officially representing all of those parties on the ballot. So that way there is no split ticket. I think they fixed that after a couple elections where the Democrats and independents split the ticket, and it ended up being very difficult for them to win. So looking at this overall electoral map, there's one more state that I would characterize as likely. That is the state of Montana. The only reason why I consider Montana to be not safe is because I don't think that Donald Trump will be able to carry the state by as large as a margin as he did 4 years ago. And also recent data actually indicates that Montana is narrowing up in the sense that it's not a safe state, but definitely is a likely state and shouldn't be classified by any means as a Joe Biden state. But the Democrats have their own likely states. This includes states such as Maine at large, which recent pundits have actually moved it over into the safe Democratic column. That's something that I have yet to do. I still think Maine will be within a 15-point margin, considering Hillary Clinton only carried it by 3%. Yes, Joe Biden will likely outperform her. I don't think by 12% in the Northeast, an already Democratic region. And we're looking across the country, from New Hampshire over to Colorado and Virginia. These states I characterize as likely Democratic states. Vice President Biden likely has, number one, he absolutely has Colorado and Virginia locked down. But for New Hampshire is typically a close state. Hillary Clinton did only win it by around 2,000 votes. However, you have to realize, again, Joe Biden will be outperforming her considerably. She was up 3 on Election Day. Biden is up 8. That's a 5% difference. If we can go ahead and take a look at New Hampshire in particular, Biden actually leads by roughly the same margin as the national popular vote. So as long as Biden leads nationwide, it is probable that Joe Biden will lead in New Hampshire and will probably win it. If Donald Trump is not really gaining on voters that he, didn't win in 2016, he doesn't realistically have a shot at any of the states that I just characterized as likely. If we're moving over across, over from Virginia over into Nevada, this is the other state in this southwest region I would consider to be likely for the Democrats. I previously characterized Arizona as likely. That was when Joe Biden was soaring high in terms of his overall nationwide polling average. He was up, I believe, 5% in Arizona at the time, so it made sense that Arizona would be characterized as a likely state, considering that many people expected to vote to the left of other states. I still think Arizona will probably vote to the left of Wisconsin, just that the recent data has indicated a narrowing up in Arizona, so that's definitely a state that, number one, I think Donald Trump's definitely going to be focusing on this state. It's a state that hasn't gone to the Democrats since 1996. So for the Democrats to win it in this election is pretty notable. They did do very well in 2018. They won the House elections. They won the Senate election there. The governor election, not so much, but there's definitely hopefuls for 2022, giving Governor Doug Ducey's approval rating at this point. But Arizona, I will not be characterizing as a likely Democratic state in this scenario. The Rust Belt. This is an area that Donald Trump did very well in 4 years ago. He was able to narrow up Minnesota for the first time in a very long time. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania flipped for the first time in over 2 decades. So over 24 years at least, some of them have 28, voting for the Democrats consistently. They flipped for a candidate, Donald Trump. That seemed very surprising, considering that Hillary Clinton was expecting to, at least the media was expecting Hillary Clinton to completely blow out Donald Trump. Now looking at back at the data, nothing really indicated a landslide. Even once she officially won the nomination, nothing at that point had indicated a landslide for Hillary Clinton. So for the mainstream media to perpetuate that notion that Hillary Clinton was undoubtedly going to be the winner, yes, polls showed her the victor in these 3 states, but not by much. So Wisconsin was the only one that was completely wrong based off the margin of error. But I am actually going to characterize Minnesota, Michigan, and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin as likely Democratic states. So this is if the election was held today. I think Donald Trump's ability to, appeal to voters based on the economy, the fact that he's a businessman, an outsider 4 years ago, definitely worked amongst the white working class. Hillary Clinton didn't do much for a lot of people in the Rust Belt. She didn't visit Wisconsin. She wasn't crucial to the auto bailout, so she had no real ties to the Rust Belt itself or the white working class there. Well, Joe Biden's different. He was born in Pennsylvania. He definitely helped with the auto bailout there. And I will say that he likely does better amongst white voters than Hillary Clinton. His approval rating's way higher. Nobody really has an honesty issue with Joe Biden. So a lot of the reasons why the Donald Trump campaign tries to attack Joe Biden on his mental capability is because they literally have nothing else to attack him on. Joe Biden has been praised by Democrats and Republicans alike. He's viewed as one of the, as Lindsey Graham said it, one of the nicest men in politics. And I honestly wholeheartedly agree. Joe Biden seems like a very genuine person, where Hillary Clinton's campaign tactics really came off as disingenuous. They came off as just a career politician, and I think that's why a lot of people wanted Donald Trump. Now, Joe Biden absolutely is a career politician, but he doesn't necessarily give off that vibe. When we're talking about a candidate who really can connect with voters and has personal connections to this entire region, whether it was through the Obama White House or literally him mentioning that he was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania multiple times in the campaign trails in 2008 and 2012, I will say I'm very confident he will do extraordinarily well compared to Hillary Clinton, not only in the Rust Belt, but in every other swing state. So Joe Biden already wins the election based off of likely states. This is without any lean states, which means that these states are ones that I expect to be between a 5 to 15 point margin for Vice President Joe Biden. I've already characterized all of them for Donald Trump, so what's next? Well, we have lean states. These are states that I would consider to be in favor of a political party, but still at least very competitive. Tilt is super competitive, but we'll get to that in a moment. So for the lean states, I would characterize, let's go ahead and characterize some of these Republican lean states first. I still think Maine's 2nd congressional district will go to Donald Trump, maybe by a 3 to 4 point margin. I don't think it'll be similar to 2016, but it's going to be very difficult for Joe Biden to win back a huge amount of voters. I understand there are previous Obama voters, but regions definitely do shift. And it was very, very close in 2018 in a Democratic wave year, which also indicates that the Democrats may not have exactly the easiest pathway. We'll have to discuss ranked choice voting in another video, but Maine's 2nd district I consider to go lean for Donald Trump. As we look across the country, there are actually no other states that I consider to be lean for Donald Trump. 2 weeks ago, I didn't characterize Texas as lean. I didn't characterize Ohio or Iowa as lean for the Trump campaign. Granted, not much has changed in the past 11 days. I'm making this video because we are 100 days out, and I think that would be a perfect time to go ahead and reassess the electoral map. But I'm going to go ahead and characterize, just looking across the map, we're going to characterize some of these lean Democratic states first, because I do want to talk more about Iowa, Ohio, Georgia, and Texas. These are states that actually have some recent data that we can go ahead and take a look at. So Arizona, I would consider to be a lean state, no longer a likely state, but I still think Joe Biden will carry Arizona at the end of the day. Absolutely. Florida, I still have yet to characterize it as a likely Democratic state. The reason why is because I don't trust a lot of the data coming out of Florida. Despite Joe Biden's trouncing lead in Florida, 7.6%, it almost consistently votes to the right of the national popular vote. Now, I understand the same thing can be said about Arizona, but Arizona is a rapidly growing state. Obviously, Florida has a growing population as well, but Arizona rapidly growing to the left. They're increasing their amount of Hispanic voters, amount of immigration in that state. And in fact, I believe Phoenix is the fastest growing U.S. city. So for Florida, yes, they are growing in population as well, but they're still about splitting off. I mean, it's a 50-50 state. Arizona has just gotten further to the left, to the left, to the left every 2 years. Texas is the same way. Florida has always been a swing state. Always been a swing state. So those 29 electoral votes, I will not really ever be comfortable characterizing them as likely, regardless of which political party is leading in that state. I'm still always going to characterize it as lean, even if there is a 8-point lead for Vice President Biden. I still think a lot of undecideds, what we've seen in 2018 and 2016, split for the Republican Party consistently. So Florida goes to the Democratic Party by a lean characterization. Still a win, regardless. North Carolina, I would also characterize as a lean Democratic state. Again, this electoral map likely won't look too different from what we saw just 10 days ago, but that's because the American electorate, number one, is boring. They refuse to make swing states. If I was in a state, regardless of who I supported, I would want my state to be a swing state so politicians actually visit it and care about what happens in the state. Nobody cares about what happens in Maryland because we all know how it's going to vote. But that's besides the point. North Carolina, I think it would be a lean state. But again, this electoral map likely won't shift much between now and November. At the end of the video, you'll see a playlist for my 2020 election nights. You can actually go ahead and see how they've changed over time. They've gone from 289 electoral votes for Vice President Biden up to now at 334 with me characterizing Nebraska's 2nd district, but I don't necessarily have any tilt Democratic states, and we'll talk about why that is. So for the Republicans, let's go ahead and take a look at Georgia. This is a state that Joe Biden actually had a lead over Donald Trump for a small period of time. This was because of the fact that, recent polls had showed him ahead of Donald Trump, but then overall averaged out after some new data was released. So for Donald Trump to be up 1.3% in a state he carried by over 5% in 2016, I believe it was a 6-point margin, 5.9%, somewhere around there. That's not a good sign. Georgia should be a Republican stronghold. I understand there is a very large black population, but there is one in North Carolina, in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Louisiana, in Arkansas, and the only ones that should be swing states based off recent electoral trends is North Carolina. In 2012, Mitt Romney did very well in Georgia. The reason why it narrowed up wasn't because of increased black turnout. We saw it decrease 7% nationwide. It was because a lot of Republican voters defected either away completely from the Republican Party or just Donald Trump. We saw a number of Mitt Romney Republicans either vote for Gary Johnson, possibly vote for Hillary Clinton, or not vote at all. We've seen a complete change around of the white women and men in suburban areas around Atlanta that were previously Republican strongholds, or at least always competitive, that has since locked down for the Democratic Party. I think Georgia's 6th and 7th congressional districts show Georgia politics very well. For those states to have flipped fairly recently, 2018, or not, I don't believe both of those seats, but Georgia's 6th actually has an interesting race because there was a 2017 special election. I didn't cover that on my channel yet because I didn't have a channel in April 2017, but actually I might have covered the runoff. I know I discussed it at one point in time, but I don't actually remember if I covered it or not. That was 3 years ago. So, but I think that Georgia definitely is a changing state, but I wouldn't say and go so far as to saying Joe Biden will win it in this election. I will still stand by my characterization of it being a tilt Republican state. As we look up at Ohio and Iowa, these are 2 states that it's still going to be very difficult for Joe Biden to come within a close margin. I understand he's leading in Ohio, but narrowly. I understand he's leading in, I understand he's underwater in Iowa, but narrowly. So these states are expected to be close. I think that Donald Trump will possibly carry Iowa by a lean margin and Ohio by a tilt margin. This is the first time, I think, in a very long time I've broken up these characterizations, just because I think Iowa will vote to the right of Ohio, and breaking that 1% wouldn't be too difficult for Donald Trump in a state he nearly won by double digits. But considering that he was at an even lower point 10 days ago, definitely has recovered a little bit, but it's not enough to say that he would be winning the election by any means. And for Texas, what's interesting about Texas is the fact that it's actually tied right now, I believe. Right now, it's exactly tied. Biden is at 46.2. Trump is at 46.2. I think a lot of these undecideds will likely vote split ticket. I think that some of them will be voting for Biden. I think a lot of them will be voting for Trump. It'll probably be maybe 55-45 in favor of the GOP, but Texas definitely has gotten closer in recent elections, and this is something to definitely worry about for the GOP. So for Texas, I still think that, looking at where it was just 10 days ago, Trump was ahead by 0.3%. His lead has now narrowed down to being tied. I don't know why they have a plus minus 0.0, if anyone can explain that. I don't know why they wouldn't just call it even. Maybe it's because the most recent poll shows him ahead by 5%, but this pollster is bad, to put it plainly. But for Trump to be tied with Joe Biden in a state that's 38 electoral votes and crucial to his victory in 2016, well, that's a huge sign of the country moving away from this incumbent president. So that's that's a tilt state. Like I said, it's supposed to be lighter, but it looks a little bit darker because of the fact that it's supposed to be a little bit translucent, and you can see the coloring behind it. So that's it for this electoral map. I know the numbers didn't change much, but if you take a look at the ratings, some of these states have narrowed up and moved further rightward. That's likely just because of the fact that Donald Trump has recovered 1.5% of the national popular vote, which definitely could change some states out of the tilt column, but not enough to dramatically change our electoral map by any means. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Make sure to register to vote, by the way. I don't know if I've ever said that, but some deadlines do hit, and you might not be able to vote on Election Day. Please consider subscribing on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. On your screen, there should be a video and then a playlist that I talked about. Again, my 2020 election nights. You can go ahead and see how these have progressed over the past couple of months. Again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all later today.